This video is for my Math 161 Pre-Calculus 1 students. I'm going over section 1.3. The second goal, we're going to find the domain and range from the graph of a piecewise function. Oh, I'm going to go ahead and add a word, piecewise function. All right, let me remove this sticky. All right, so first class, we talked about how to find domain and range from the graph of a continuous function. So we had one piece of graph and we were using the interval notation to write their domain and range. Now in this video, we will find the domain and range, same thing, just that we have two pieces, okay, piecewise function. So here's the first one. The entire graph of the function f is shown in the figure below. Write the domain and range of f as intervals or unions of intervals. So this will be the newer thing. It's very similar to what we did last class. But to write unions of intervals, what we're going to do is we're going to use the U symbol. Okay, we're going to use U, okay, in between two intervals. If you have more than two intervals, I'll show you. Here's the first one. So if you're reading the domain, we're looking at the possible x values, or in this graph, how far does each of these pieces go to the left and how far does it go to the right? Because domain is about possible x values, and x values are the numbers on these horizontal x-axis, right? So let's take a look. How far does this picture go to the left? This is the far left point, and I can see that the number is -5. So when I write the domain, I'll go ahead and say -5, comma, because that's where it started on the left, and it stops right here at -2. Okay, kind of reviewing what we talked about last class. Remember, for open circle, we have an open circle here, use regular parentheses, okay? But for a closed circle, we're going to have to draw a bracket. So what I just did is I found the domain of this piece on the left, okay? But that's not it, right? We have another piece down here, okay? The x value of this starting point, look, this one. A lot of people say -4, but look, -4 is the y value, right? If you look at the order pair of this, if you write the order pair, the order pair is 0, -4. That's how we have this point plotted on the y-axis. So when you write the domain, you need to make sure that you use the x value, okay? Use the x value for domain. For the range, we're going to use the y value, but for the domain, it's a common mistake because people see this -4 right next to this point, but the x value that we should use for the domain is 0. So draw a U symbol in between the first interval, and then now I'm going to go ahead and write square bracket 0, comma, because the second piece starts at 0, and it goes all the way to this value. The x coordinate is 3. So I'll go ahead and say 0, 3. And looking at how both of these circles are closed circles, right? Go ahead and use a square bracket for both. So that's what we mean by union of intervals. We draw this U symbol when you have more than one interval to write the domain and range, okay? So now let's look at the range, okay? Very similar, but then the question we should be asking this time is how low does this graph go and how high does this go, okay? All right, so let me go ahead and erase this. The lowest point of this graph is this, right? This is the lowest point. Lowest point is -4. And -4 is the y value. We're using the values of this y-axis. So I'll go ahead and say bracket -4, comma. And I'm going to follow this graph, okay? So it starts down here, but I can see it's going up. and it stops right here. When it hits -3, it stops. The first piece in the bottom stops at -3. So I'll say the range is from -4 to -3. And then I have to do the union symbol because now I'm going to jump to the second piece that is on the left, this one. Now, how low does this graph go? This piece of graph. The lowest point of this graph is -1. So I'll go ahead and say square bracket -1 because we have a closed circle there. And I can see it's going up, but it stops at what number? 2. But after 2, we're going to have to draw a parenthesis because we have an open circle at 2. Okay, so that's it. That's how you can use unions of intervals to write the domain and range of piecewise functions. Okay, so what we have here is, if you look at the range, possible y values are just -4 to -3. But do you guys see that we have a gap here? We have a gap there, so we don't have any y values like -2. But the second one that I prepared for you looks a little different. So we'll do this one and we'll stop this video, okay? So let's read the domain of this graph. I have 2 pieces, so I should start from the one on the left, okay? So it starts at what number? Well, we have to be very careful because I almost said 1. And I think that's actually, you know what, that's correct. So if you take a look at this order pair, this point, the order pair is 1, 0, right? That's 1, 0. Okay. You go 1 to the right, but you don't go up or down. So the x coordinate is 1. So I'll say the one on the left starts at 1. But you know why I draw a square bracket, right? Because it's a closed circle. And it keeps on going to the right. And it stops right here at the x value of 3. So I'll say the first piece goes from 1 to 3. Okay, let me just double check the circle type. Oh, this one's also closed circle. So I'm going to have to just use a bracket after the 3. That's it for this piece. Okay, we wrote the domain for that one. It goes from 1 to 3. All right, next piece, I have this one. That graph starts at the x value of 4. Okay, so I'll go ahead and say union 4, comma. It goes up, oh well, I shouldn't say go up. It goes to the right, and then it stops right here with an open circle, and the x coordinate of that point is 5. So whenever you're reading the domain, make sure you're reading the numbers off the x-axis, okay? Don't look at their y value. Y values are for the range, okay? So if I read the number of this x-axis, I'm going to go ahead and say that it stops at 5, but because that point was open, I'm going to draw a parenthesis after 5. So that's the domain of this piecewise function. Okay, let's do the range. Now this one's a little bit tricky. So how low does this go? What is the lowest point of this graph? I can see that this is the lowest point. Lowest point is -5 because the y value of that point is -5. So for the range, when you are reading range, you have to look at the coordinates of the y-axis. So let's take a look. I'm going to go ahead and say it starts from -5. And let's follow the graph, okay? I'm going to go follow the graph here. So it starts here. It covers everything from -5 all the way to what's 0, right? And I know I said 0 because even though we see 1 here, that's the x-coordinate. The y-coordinate for this point is 0, okay? Y-coordinate is 0. So look, it covers everything from -5 to 0, right? We have a graph, but that's not the highest point. Because what's happening here is that, I mean, we can start from this graph, right? And it goes up, okay? They do have overlapping area, Okay, like this area and like that, they're overlapping, but it just means that we have y values from -4 to 0. But I'm jumping to the other curve. I'm gonna start from here, and I see that the highest point is, let me erase this. I'll take a look. What's the highest point? 2. So the range is from -5 to 2. Just make sure we draw a parenthesis after 2 because we have an open circle here. Now, like the first one that we did, I'm going to erase all this stuff. The first one that we did, we had pieces, okay? Like because we had a gap in the range, right? The first piece only went from -4 to -3. We had to jump. And the second piece started from -1 to 2. So we had whoopsie daisies, where did that go? All right, let me open this back up. I'm going to pause the recording for just 1 second. Yeah, sometimes I lose connection, so I got it back up. Let me go ahead and make it a little bit bigger. So the first one, we had a union of range because the first, 2 pieces had a gap, right? There was an interval where the y values, the graph didn't touch. Oh no. All right, hold on 1 second. That's why we had a union of intervals, because we had to say that there was a gap. It wasn't continuous. But for this one, the graph started here and it went all the way up to 2, and there wasn't any gap in between. Okay, so that's why for the second one, the range is just a single interval. We didn't have to put a union. Now, for this goal, you should be able to find, let me go ahead and find that for you, but I'm done going over those examples. But just wanted to show you the Alex homework topic, okay? So if you feel like you want to, if you're ready to do some practice problems on that particular topic, what you can do is you can go to Alex and you can go to 1.3 homework. Let's say start my path. And this is called domain and range from the graph of a piecewise function. So I'll go find that for you. Domain and range. Here, domain and range from the graph of a piecewise function. So if you click on this, you can look at another example they give you, okay, if you want to read about that. But when you're ready to try some problems, you can click on start. And what you want to do is answer 3 in a row correct. If you missed it, it's going to go back. And, if you answer enough of them, if you get, like, I think it's like usually 3 in a row, then you'll be able to get credit for this. But if you need me to show you any more examples of this topic, just reach out, okay? I'm gonna stop this video and I will come back and show you how to do evaluating functions in the next video.